This is the X-Skewb. It's a mod of a mass-produced 57mm Skewb. I 3D printed extensions and then glued them onto the Skewb to create these extra face-turning layers, which you can see cover 4 of the faces. And then the red side and the orange side don't actually have those. They just have the normal Skewb faces with some raised areas. The turning quality varies. The Skewb turns work great because the mass-produced Skewb is fine. And then the face turns vary. The white face turns absolutely perfectly. The blue face turns not as good as the white one. Turns alright though. The green one, I'd say, is slightly worse than the blue one. Slightly more catchy and choppy. And then the yellow face is by far the worst one. Like, sometimes I turn the yellow face and I'm just thankful that it actually worked. And this is the one that makes you look around the puzzle the most to make sure that the Skewb isn't misaligned. And then sometimes if you misalign it and then align it again, it'll work. I got the idea for this puzzle while watching an ND Puzzles video. It was actually a video on their Floppy Skewb, which you can see here on the screen. Now, in reality, it has nothing to do with a Skewb other than kind of looking like one on the top and bottom faces, but that still got me intrigued. Can you create other kinds of Skewb cuboids? So my first thought was to create a 3x3x5 Skewb, essentially, which is basically where it would be kind of a Skewb with this layer here and this layer here, applying the same concept as a 3x3x5, where you have a 3x3 with an extra layer on top and on the bottom. This is an old cube-free one, and it's not really a cuboid, but you can get the idea. Now, the reason I didn't put these extra face turns onto all 6 sides is simply because if I did that, then all of these Skewb corners would actually be kind of hidden. You can see that it's already hidden by this corner piece and this corner piece, and if I had another face turn here, it would just be hidden by another corner piece. Now, I actually wanted the inner Skewb corners to play a part in the Skewb solve, so that's why I decided not to make a cross Skewb, as that would be called. And also, the cross Skewb would actually look very similar to a puzzle designed and created by Grégoire Fenig, the compound Skewb, which you can see on the screen now. It's not actually a true cross Skewb. It has a different mechanism entirely, but at least visually it does kind of look like a cross Skewb, and I wanted to make something that's a little more unique. But to be quite honest, once you have a design for this X-Skewb, modifying that design to make a cross Skewb would actually be pretty simple. All you'd have to do is change these extensions so that there's rails here instead of these kind of blank faces. Anyway, so as you'd expect on most cuboids, after you've turned the cube a bit, and you have a side that kind of doesn't have a full set of extensions, it kind of has either a red or an orange, you can't turn it because it's blocked. This isn't a new concept or anything. It's the same as on a lot of these cuboids where the outer layers are fully functional, but once their layer is no longer complete, you can't turn them. And this is achieved using these I don't know if you can see it well, but here we are. These kind of protrusions. You can see that it prevents this corner from moving out. This was actually a kind of a trial and error thing. I wasn't sure whether these protrusions would actually be enough to prevent the puzzle from moving when it shouldn't be able to, and they were, which was a pleasant surprise. And also another concern was that in mid-turn, you can see that this corner should theoretically be able to move out of its orbit and just out of the puzzle in general. So that's why these pieces have additional protrusions here. If I move it back, you can kind of see it on this orange X-Skewb piece. So that's how I got to this puzzle. I do plan to redesign this. It doesn't turn extremely well, and that's partially because the mechanism was a bit limited by the X-Skewb cuts, and partially because the pieces aren't really sanded because of how fragile they are. Now, the reason I made this puzzle this way in the first place is because I didn't want to have to go and design an entire X-Skewb mechanism just to test this concept out. However, now that I've seen that basically this works, I might actually go and design an updated version with a fully functional X-Skewb mechanism. And then kind of the mechanism for these face turns can be sunk into the X-Skewb, which would be the optimal way to do it. So that'll be the update, but for now I think this puzzle is good enough for me to scramble and solve. So that's what I'll do. Right now I'll scramble it. So honestly, I know not all of the pieces are split apart, but I think this is actually a decent scramble. So now I'm going to try and solve it. Alright, so the puzzle is solved. I got a little bit frustrated with it, so I turned off the camera, sat down, and solved it. Overall, this puzzle turns quite badly. In fact, while the solve was really interesting, it was just painful because of how bad the turning is. Now I definitely actually want to go and redesign this to make it not fragile and also turn decently. But that's all for this video. Thank you all for watching, and have a great evening.